For our next session, I'm really excited to interview our special guest. Paul McKinlay is here with us today. He is VP of Communications and Remote Working at VistaPrint. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brian, thanks very much for having me.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers are familiar with VistaPrint, but can you just briefly explain who Cimpress VistaPrint is?
Yeah, sure. So Cimpress is the parent company to a dozen businesses around the world that use the efficiency and scale of mass production to produce personalized items for small businesses and consumers in quantities as low as one. Our businesses and manufacturing facilities are based all over the world. Our largest business is the one you mentioned, the one that most people have probably heard of, which is VistaPrint, which operates globally. In Europe, which I know your audience is from today, we have brands like Druckwerk Deal, Pixart Printing, Wir machen Druck, Trade Print, Exaprint. If you visited one of our production facilities today, you would probably see us making marketing materials like flyers and banners, signs and hats. You'd also see photo products going through the lines like mugs, canvas, t-shirts, pens, and so on. Does that give you the story?
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Let's get into what you're doing. Head of Remote, that's a new title. Tell me what it means and how did that come about?
Yeah, sure. So as for my role, I've been with the company for over 10 years now. I lead Cimpress corporate communications, VistaPrint internal communications. And last year, as you mentioned, I was asked to lead our transition to permanent remote first working.
So in July of this last year, July of 2020, you guys already were stepping forward on a number of challenges. Your CEO, Robert Keane, was quoted about making how and where work happens a towering strength of our culture and a part of our competitive advantage. A lot of companies are still really wrestling with what's their operating model going to be going forward. What enabled Cimpress to take action as quickly as you all have?
Well, when we left our offices and began to work from home, which is probably about exactly a year ago from the date of this event, like everyone else, we really had no idea what was going to happen. Thankfully, we had really strong cloud infrastructure, a zero trust environment, and a team that was largely using laptops. And so immediate continuity was not a huge concern. If you fast forward 3 months to June, our executives were really pleased with the productivity, the progress, and really importantly, the engagement of our team members that they were seeing. Despite the pandemic-related challenges we were all experiencing personally and professionally. Our business is definitely not one that received COVID tailwinds. We definitely got a lot of COVID headwinds, and there was a lot to work on. We surveyed our team members regularly to really try and understand and stay close to how they were feeling as a remote first population. And there was obviously a lot we could do to improve life for them. But of over 1,000 respondents in one survey in June, we had 60 people who said they wanted to return to an office full time. And so discussing this with executives, the good performance, the views of our team members, and the fact that we were seeing no downsides to remote working beyond the things we needed to fix for our team members, we quickly concluded that a clear declaration of future intent would give a degree of certainty to team members at a time when there was very little certainty for team members. And, on reflection, it's paid such huge dividends for engagement, for retention, and especially we're seeing now for talent acquisition. Certainty is at a premium right now still, and providing it has been a huge gift to our team members. I'm certainly delighted not to be in a communication team in a business where they're still in the cycle of, well, we're going to set a date for the next 2 months and then we'll talk to you again then, because the next week, team members are already worrying about, how am I going to look after my kids? Am I going to be back in the office? What's going on? And so to have that certain declaration of where we're going so early, and then to start moving on that, has been such a bonus for our team members and for our business as a whole. I guess, as we saw the business moving forward, team members asking for permanent remote working and the business going well, there was no downside to moving quickly.
That's really fantastic. I mean, stability is so important to people, especially given all the stress that they're under. Our own research showed that in Q4, stress levels went up even further than they were in the third quarter of last year, around the globe when you think about all the challenges people are facing. So giving them some sense of stability at work is really critical. It's really interesting, too, because your results aren't that different from what we're seeing on a global basis. If you think about like our numbers, 17% of people overall wanted to go back into the office. But if you look at people who are working fully remote, that number was also 6%, which happens to be the same as your number. It's really amazing how much this doesn't change. Still, there's a number of companies where executive suites have still struggled with that decision of moving to a remote first, a virtual first move. What was that executive discussion like, and how hard or easy was it for you all to reach alignment around that?
I think our executive team have been, I'm going to sound like I'm sucking up now, but have been consistently and admirably focused on their own experience, the experience of their teams, and how we've been serving our customers throughout this whole pandemic remote forced period, as we've been describing it. This was not a decision we would have made. And to be honest, in many parts of our organization, working remotely was actively discouraged a year ago. And we were one of those companies that was very focused on building around bricks and mortar real estate and in hiring around bricks and mortar real estate. And I guess it was just so eye-opening to see team members, despite the pressure of the pandemic and all of the stuff. I mean, beyond the pandemic, all of the other things that we all know about that have been going on in the world in the last 12 months, with politics, with environmental impacts in lots of the places where we operate. It's just been amazing to see them flourish and succeed, and to have such a positive experience. And we've, one of the things we've really worked on is cultivating and encouraging conversation about the benefits that people are having, even though we're not truly gaining all of the benefits of remote working yet. The pandemic is restricting our ability to go to the gym or to take a partner out for dinner early one day or to do lots of other things. But asking team members what remote first working has enabled them to do has just encouraged this outpouring of stories about I've been able to help a sick family member, or I've been able to see great moments with my kids, or I've been able to be at home with my newborn for much longer than I would have been able to in some geographies. And so, just continually encouraging those stories has kept the focus. So our executives have been 100% committed to this. I think that's one of the keys. When our CFO put on Slack, actually, that he was now taking guitar lessons during an afternoon a week with his daughter, it just empowered and enabled people to start to tell those stories. So inspiring to see.
Yeah, there's an element of like, when you think about the skills needed in leadership, emotional and social intelligence and the ability to be vulnerable has really changed in this environment. We had a similar story early on in the pandemic. We had a senior level executive, Stuart and his direct reports had an all hands. It was very quick. It was everybody giving updates. And Julie Legal, our CMO, two of her daughters basically Zoom bombed her in the course of her part of the conversation. And it was a fantastic moment, not only in terms of just like being very real, but for all the working mothers who are struggling with the fact that their kids are now at home because schools aren't open or childcare wasn't available. It was a recognition of the challenge and that a lot of people are in this that really helped people understand what was going on.
I think it's GitLab. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's GitLab that talk about welcoming interruptions and them being celebrated in every meeting where they happen. And, we're looking into people's lives. We're looking into their rooms. We're looking into their households. And so you have to expect there to be things that you would not see in the office. And I just love seeing the dogs and when the Amazon delivery comes and the dog goes absolutely crazy. It's just a funny moment, and it breaks up the work.
Yeah, my doors are closed so the dog doesn't come out and start barking at the squirrels. So we'll see what happens. You're a big proponent of remote first as a working model. For folks that aren't familiar, it'd be great just to have you describe briefly what some of the key elements are of that model.
Yeah. So we use Remotefirst to describe our effort to revisit and, where necessary, redesign every policy, practice, tool, process, everything that goes on to get work done for a remote team member first, and secondarily for somebody who's based in an office. And that's the reverse of the way we've designed historically for all of those things. I think we think of it like the transition of websites to mobile first. Rather than desktop first, and so they still need to work if I'm visiting from my laptop, but the customer experience is optimized for the vast majority of visitors who are now using phones and tablets. We want to do the same for remote first team members, and so I think there are two key elements that have been so important for us, and I talked about one a little bit already. I think when I was asked to take on this role and lead this change with a fantastic cross-functional group of people from all over Cimpress and VistaPrint, I thought I was being asked to fix the problems that people were experiencing in remote forced working. And Robert, our founder, as always, surprised us and me. And he gave us a mandate to make remote first a towering strength of our culture and a competitive advantage. And that was just such a bar raiser. And so I talked about executive commitment, and having that right from the founder and CEO means that our remote onboarding team is now trying to deliver a world-class first 100 days, as measured by our new hires, not as measured by us. Our real estate team is redesigning our offices into collaboration centers based on team member feedback about how often they want to visit and what they want to do. And our executive team has just been unanimously supportive from the off, and it just makes such a huge difference. So I think that's one big key to our thinking about remote first. And then the second is moving to a document everything mindset. Our team has led the charge with the collaborative build of a remote first handbook. We haven't published it externally like many have. We've kept it internally, but we've learned so much from all the generous companies who have done that, and I know they give that willingly. And we've really tried to capture all things remote, and it's in build publicly internal to the company, so people see what we're working on. Of course, it has travel policy and expense process and the kind of things that you'd expect. But it's been inspiring to see so many of our team members contributing to the pages about home office product recommendations or virtual engagement tools or async work tips. And so really helping people to understand that documentation is the key to async, is the key to nonlinear work days, is the key to unlocking all of the benefits of true remote working, is a culture change. And we're, this far as where we want to be in 2 years from now. But we're making great progress, and team members have embraced it.
That's really fantastic, and I could not agree more. That this is an act of reinvention, right? We're recreating how work happens, rethinking all of it. And companies like Dropbox has its Virtual First Toolkit. GitLab has published tremendous materials. Oyster HR literally has its Notion publicly facing, so that you can go and read all of their internal work processes and rules. Just great examples across the board of people being open and sharing what's working for them as an opportunity for all of us to learn together, which I think is just fantastic. One of the things that you touched on there that I think people can sometimes get a misnomer about is remote first or virtual first doesn't mean you never have access to an office. You are still thinking about ways in which you use shared space.
We are, for sure. We set guiding principles at the start of this transition, and one of the really important ones to talk to team members about was we strongly believe that in-person collaboration is a part of our future. And for some people, that could be team meetings, organization meetings, a big meeting in the company once a year. But for many, it will be access to local collaboration centers or shared working spaces where they can just connect and have social time and really feel like part of the company, part of the furniture, part of the culture, as part of their working experience. We definitely never wanted to go fully remote with no real estate. That was not our model. We did not want to go there. Who knows what will happen in future, but as of today, we are actively redesigning our real estate into collaboration centers for team members who live near them. That said, over 30% of our new hires last quarter are nowhere near being able to access a collaboration center or a piece of real estate that we have. And so unlocking access to talent while trying to wrestle with in-person collaboration and bringing people into the company is definitely on our minds and something we need to work on.
That is fantastic. I have so many more questions for you, but we promised we would keep this to 15 to 17 minutes of time. Paul, it has been wonderful talking with you about this. Really appreciate your willingness to share with everybody what you're doing at Cimpress, the experiments you're running. Look forward to hearing a lot more about it in the days to come. I'm going to hand it back to Bobby and Casper, who are going to wrap up the webinar, and they're going to explain how we're going to follow up in terms of all of your questions and how we're going to share all of the great content that you've seen and heard here today. Thanks very much, Paul. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, and I want to learn, not just share. So if anyone listening wants to reach out and teach, I'm all ears.